So hello from Green-Mopeds in London. So today we are trying this MQiGT Model 45 extended range, and we're just going to take it on a bit of a spin, take it up our test hill and tell you some things about it. This is the latest addition, the 12th addition to the NIU UK lineup. Okay, so the MQiGT Model 30 standard range came out a couple of months ago, and now this one's been added in. We've gone over the differences between, or the way that these things fit in to the range on the static review, but just to clarify, there was the possibility of having 4 MQiGTs, a Model 30 standard range with Eve, which is what we've got, a Model 30 extended range with Panasonic, which we don't have, then a Model 45 standard range with Eve, which we don't have, and a Model 45 extended range with Panasonic, which this is it. Okay, so essentially, as I've said before, the importer has decided which of the bikes to bring in, and they've decided to delineate the bikes by the battery and the speed. You could argue that you could have brought in both the Model 30 standard range and extended range, or you could have brought in, just the Model 30 extended range and this one. But for whatever reason, they've chosen to do that. In some respects, I can understand it. That would make 14 models. As you've probably been seeing, if you did a comparison across the entire range, there is overlap, and you could argue again that this is one of those things. So anyway, this is the 45 extended range. So this one has 2 Panasonic 48 volt 42 amp hour batteries. Okay, some of it is using what appears to be the same pieces of kit from other bikes. So for example, this is 14-inch wheels, probably the same wheels as on the NQiGTS's. This is a 3.1 kilowatt controller, probably the same as what is on the NQiGTS's. The batteries are different though. Obviously, on the GTS's, you have 60 volt batteries, and you have 2 of them, and one is under the floor and one is under the seat. This bike, although I don't think it's totally true, has basically got 2 M Plus Sport batteries. In other words, the M Plus Sport is also 48 volt, 42 amp hours. I did actually try one of those batteries in one of these bikes, and it didn't work. So there is something different about the BMS on these batteries, or the controller or something, that doesn't recognise the MQi Plus Sport battery, even though it's 48 volt, 42 amp hours. What you can do is you can actually make the other models just by changing the batteries. As in, you could put these 2 48 volt 42 amp hour batteries in the MQi 30 standard range and get the extended range version. So they are interchangeable on the MQiGT setup, but they don't seem to be interchangeable across the MQi Plus Sport. Can't tell you why, but I think it's probably a BMS thing. Okay, so if that hasn't confused you, I'll carry on. So this bike, with its 2 48 volt Panasonic batteries, has a quoted range of 56 miles. Okay, that is with 2 batteries. You might expect more, and that's probably a fair comment. especially if you compare it to any other NIU that has two 60-volt batteries, where they're claiming up to 77 miles. Okay, so in this case, two batteries, you're basically saying that one battery gives you 26 miles, which that seems to be a function of the 3.1 kilowatt motor, because you would get more than that on the MQi Plus Sport with one battery if you did one battery versus one battery. And that would be obviously because the MQi Plus Sport only has a 1200 watt motor, not a 3 kilowatt motor. Okay, so NIU do this with their batteries and their controllers and their wheel sizes and things like that. It's not wrong, it's just that they give you lots of different choices, and if range is your desire, then it's probably still an NQi GTS or NQi Pro, as in the two Panasonic 60-volt batteries. Okay. However, there are reasons for choosing this bike if range is not your ultimate consideration. One is size. This bike is bigger than any other bike, as in including the NQi GTSs. The only other bike that's the same size is the MQiGT which is obviously the same bike but limited. Okay, so this bike is bigger. It's longer wheelbase. Where it isn't bigger is seat height. Okay, so again, if you're taller, or maybe you should put it the other way around. If you are shorter and seat height could be a bit of an issue, then even though this is on 14-inch wheels, this bike might be a better option for you because its seat height is 79 centimeters. Okay, so and other NIUs go up to 81. So it might be that, you know, although this bike is on the same 14-inch wheels, this might be a better option. However, counteracting that is the width of the seat. So I don't know if you can see that. I'm 6'1" and my feet are just flat. But because the seat is wider, that does counteract. So on the ends, the seat is narrower. So you might want to take that into consideration. Essentially, I guess we're saying you need to try it and sit on both and see which one's better for you. But as you can see down there, a lot of floor space. One of the other things they've done is, if you can see down there, the footrest is integrated into the bike body rather than a pop-out one that you get on every other NIU apart from the bikes that don't even have a second passenger. Okay, so I guess the only thing to think about there is, if you damage the footrest, you are replacing quite a lot of the bike, whereas if you damage a foot peg, you are just replacing the peg probably. Okay, so they've made a good job of putting the mat to cover that footrest as well and everything like that, but from an ongoing sort of consideration, you might think, okay, well, if I muck that up, then I've got to possibly replace the whole bottom panel, which could be relatively expensive, certainly compared to a foot peg. All right. So back to the batteries. One of the things that they have done with this bike, which you mentioned on the Model 30 review, is they have bundled in a 26 amp charger. Okay. The question, of course, remains is, how do you get 26 amps out of a 13 amp plug? Well, you don't. What happens is, because you can't obviously get something for nothing, what happens is, if you have one of the batteries being charged, then it is 11 amps it's charging it at, and if you have two, it is 11 and 9. Okay, so they split the 26 into 11 and 9. Not sure what happens to the last 6 amps, but there you go. So this is a much more chunkier charger than on the NGTs. Okay, so the NGT charger is 12 amp. Okay, so what that means is you get a faster charging time on this bike. Okay, if you charge one battery, it would be about 3.5 hours. Okay, so if you charge two, it probably goes up to about 4 hours, 4.5 hours. So this is, if charging is your thing, you need that for whatever reason, then again, this might be the one for you. Didn't actually try this charger in the NQi GTSs. From memory, I think they have different tops, so you possibly couldn't anyway, as in the battery tops are different between M's and N's. Okay, so that's that. What you can see is that the modes here, how they map onto the speed. So mode 1 is 16 miles an hour, which seems to be the standard speed for mode 1 on most bikes. Mode 2 gets you to 26, and then mode 3 will get you all the way to 45, which is the same speed, really near enough as an NQi GTS. And why wouldn't it be? It's basically the same controller, although with a lower battery you might think it might not. But I'll be taking it on a faster road in a little while just to see what happens. Okay, but as we take it to our sort of test hill, it'll be interesting how it compares to the Model 30, because we did do the same thing with the Model 30. Okay. So that's that. Batteries we talked about. Obviously this is all app connected. It's got the same clever indicators where it will cancel automatically, as it just did there, as I go more than 60 degrees around a corner. There is a new app, by the way, or an updated app, which allows you to sort of track in real time your speed and stuff like that if you have the app visible and mounted on your phone. To help in that, actually, NIU in their new bike here have made it easier to attach both a screen with these little holes here for the screen and also a phone, because on the NQi GTSs you had to be careful of putting the the phone mount on the body, because it would scratch the body, but they haven't thought about that, so that's obviously good. Also notice that this is integrated, the windshield, as much as it is. Okay, I'm not sure if I'm getting any benefit from that, to be fair, but that's what they've decided to do. So you'll notice on the other ones you actually screw that on. Okay, so we're coming up to our little test hill, Nightingale Lane in Richmond. We'll just see how this handles. So I'm going to put it into sport mode, so this should almost fly up here. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so that turn was a little bit shallow for it to notice that I've turned. As you can see, it's holding its speed. I'm in mode 1, and this bit is a bit steeper. This is like a 1 in 7 hill. Okay, so this is 3 kilowatts, remember, this is 4 horsepower. Okay, and that is flat out, so it just about kept its speed of 19 miles an hour. So I was possibly expecting a bit more from it then, at least to accelerate. Anyway, it made it. So I'm 85 kilos. This has got a top box on the back with a bit of weight. The charger's in it and a few other bits and bobs, so that's that. Okay, so it made it. Okay, so the app, as you probably all know with NIU, tells you lots of useful information about the bike. So you can check its status, You can upgrade it, as in from a firmware perspective. Right, so NIU have this thing called OTA, over-the-air updates, and what you do is you basically check the bike through the app and it will tell you that there's an update available, and you basically leave the bike outside and it should update firmware. So the firmware is stuff that obviously might improve performance, fix a few bugs with the software and things like that. It's probably it is the most sophisticated app from that. Super Soccer have caught up a little bit with their latest version, but NIU have then stepped it up a bit with some of the things that they've added recently, like the real live speedometer and all that sort of stuff. The other thing, of course, it's got, being an NIU, is regen and all that other good stuff. So when you brake, it will recover some of the energy. Let's say it's up to 5%. Obviously that equates to maybe 2.5 miles at best. Okay, but something for nothing, so why not? Okay. In terms of prices, so this is an interesting one. The price of this bike, okay, so remember, 2 Panasonic 48 volt 42 amp hour batteries, 45 mile an hour, faster charger, bigger seat, more comfortable for 2 14-inch wheels, is 3,516. Compare that to an NQi GTS Pro, which has got 2 60 volt Panasonic with more range, same controller, is 3,596. So £80 difference between one or the other. So your question really is, which would you choose and for why? So as I said, if it is range that you want, it would certainly be the GTS Pro, or the NQi Pro for that matter, although it only does 28. Okay, so if range is king, for £80 more, you will get 20 odd miles more. Okay, so if that's the most important thing to you. However, if size, your size maybe, or size of the bike's important to you, and range is okay, then you would probably choose this one for £80 less. Okay, because most of the things about these bikes between the GTS and the QI are similar, other than the battery and range. So that's something to bear in mind. I guess you could argue that if you don't like stripes, you might go for this one, because this comes in plain colours, like the N's, like the M's actually. So blue, red, this is black, there's a grey and a white. So we showed you the gloss grey on the static review. Okay. I guess one other reason that this bike is better is because it's got a larger seat, and the seat is for sure larger, it's wider and longer. You can actually get the charger, not with the splitter as far as I can make out, but you can get the charger in under the seat on this bike. You definitely cannot on the N. Okay, so if carrying your charger is important, then this would be an option. The guy's just gone through a red light. Okay, alright, so we're now on the faster bit of the roads around here, and we'll just see how comfortably it gets up to 45. We'll put the time up at the bottom as we normally do. Okay, so I'm in sport mode, my throttle is fully back. There's 30. And there's 40. Okay, this is a 40-mile road, so that was as good as you should get. It gets to 50 further down, so we can test that. Okay, So again, a lot of these bikes at 3 kilowatts, which is 4 horsepower, these are not record-setting bikes. If you see our speed test on the NQiGT, the original NQiGT, which became the NQi GTS Pro, they do not set records. It was 13 seconds to 30, I think, in that one. But that isn't why you're buying these bikes. If you want a faster bike, then you'd go for something like a Horwin or a Silence or something like that. But this bike is about, you know, it's a good all-rounder. I think that's what you would say about NIU. They're not the fastest acceleration, but they are certainly good on range. They're not the cheapest, but they are a good all-round bike. They're solid. They have innovation. So another bit of innovation that I didn't mention on this bike is it's keyless. Okay, so no key to start it. In fact, the only reason to use the key is to open the seat. Okay, as you see, I'm riding without the key. It's in my pocket. So it is. They keep on improving little things like keyless, like the app has now been improved again. So NIU are sort of pushing forward in that way, whereas other companies might be pushing forward in, you know, 72 volt batteries or a bit more power or what have you. Okay. All right. So as you saw, no dramas with that. That was a 40-mile road. I'll come back when we get to a 50-mile road, and you'll see how it goes on a 50-mile road. And then that will probably wrap it up, other than to say that, of course, this is on the grant, as are all of NIU bikes. So it's 2 years on the bike and 3 years on the batteries. NIU are now also including a recovery service, so which this is new for new. They are giving you a recovery service as part of your included warranty. So other bikes do this. Horwin does it, Silence do it, so it's good that NIU are also doing it. So that will give you a bit more peace of mind if anything goes wrong. You can get it to a dealer to be dealt with. And I'll come back in a little while when we get to the 50 mile an hour road, so you can see how it goes at full speed. Okay, so we're now into a 50 mile an hour road. So as you can see, I'm flat out. I am flat out. I'm doing 45, which is, as the name suggests, it's maximum speed. What you often find with these bikes is flat out does mean flat out. Any change in situation, temperature, incline will affect that speed, which it, as you just see, it did. I went down a couple of miles while I was going over that bridge. But again, this isn't an NIU thing. They all do that because at the end of the day, this is not a lot of horsepower. Horsepower is what gives you acceleration, and these are 4 horsepower bikes. But you know, it's cruising along at 40, 45, which is basically, you know, what it says on the tin. So all good. And remember, this bike is 115 kilos, so it's a bit heavier. Well, it's certainly heavier than an MQi Plus Sport by about 30 kilos. So it is heavier, and it's also, see, it's bigger, therefore heavier. So it's moving more, and I'm 85 kilos as well. So that's another reason. Okay, but as you can see, it cruises along at that speed pretty much as it needs to. So we'll just come off here and I guess summarise. I guess if there's a couple of little things that I don't quite get about this bike, well, there's one thing in particular. There are 2 start buttons. I don't quite understand that. There's the traditional green one that you all know, down on the right hand side, but there's this other one next to it that also enables the bike. So I'm not too sure why they need that, but that's something they've decided to do. The other thing is that they've flipped these switches around. The cruise control, which it has, just like any other NIU bike, is now above the indicator, as is the hazard lights, but the horn is beneath. I have caught the hazard lights while trying to find the indicators, so that's just one thing to be aware of. Okay, but other than that, it's fine. No complaints at all. Okay, so hopefully that's helped you. Obviously, you're welcome for test rides of any of the bikes that we have, and if you have any questions, please feel free to drop us a line at hello@green-mopeds.com. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is Green-Mopeds, where you'll see this and other reviews, and hopefully that was informative. So thanks very much.